Hey everyone, we're going to start in just a few minutes here. For those just joining in, we're going to start in about 3 minutes, right at 1 o'clock, so just hang tight. We're going to be starting in just about 2 minutes. For those who are just joining in, we'll be starting in about 2 minutes. All right, just about 1 minute left, you guys and gals, and then we'll get started.
Okay, it is 1 o'clock and we're going to go ahead and get started here. Before we kind of kick off into the details, we want to introduce who's going to be having this conversation with you guys here today. So first off, my name is Lico. I am the business development manager here. I also do project management. I have a passion and expertise in growing e-commerce companies. And so I'm very excited to be here with you. Sally, you want to introduce yourself to the people?
Yeah, and I'm Sally Baker. I'm the digital marketing manager at Luca AM. I handle all things SEO and Google Ads related.
All right, so we're bringing you this webinar on behalf of Luca AM. We're a creative agency. So what we do is we focus on growing e-commerce companies. Forgive me, I'm having some sort of a technical issue here. Don't worry about that slide. So we're a creative agency and we focus on growing e-commerce companies in end-to-end branding and design strategy. We do custom website design and digital marketing. We're very passionate here to kick off kind of our first series in the realm of Google Ads. This one, we're going to be covering the different type of the campaign types, as well as associated bidding strategies. So we're going to let you know kind of the best ones to look out for with the purpose of driving sales. So this is going to be very specific, beneficial. Once we kind of get those set up, we're going to dive into Google extensions, kind of how to make sure that you legitimize these ads and make them most attractive as possible to your audience. And then once your ads are live, you're going to want to make sure that you maintain them. So we're going to go through a live rendition of the search term maintenance best practices in a Google Ads account. And so before we get kicked off, I do want to let you guys know we will have another webinar as a part of this Google Ads series, focusing on ad builds. That's going to come to you later this quarter with myself and our Google specialist, Sally, as well. As we move throughout, you will see a Q&A option on your webinar. So if you have any questions, just please pop them in there, and then Sally and I can address those here at the end. So without further ado, we're going to kick it off with our first section, being conversion strategies for types and biddings. So Sally, why don't you kind of walk through just a general overview of the different campaign types and associated bidding strategies, and then let us know what we're going to want to focus on and what's necessary for best performing ads that don't bleed.
Sure. So when you hop into Google Ads to build your first campaign, there's so many different options to choose from. For the intent of this webinar, and if you're e-commerce, I'm going to show you how to first initially build your search campaign, which is your text ads on Google, and then the best bidding strategy and strategies rather for that campaign. Now you can target all sorts of things like return on ad spend, cost per action, cost per click, even target impression share. But what you really want to do here is when you create your new search campaign, you really want to focus on the maximize conversion strategy. This is something that in 2018 and before I would tell you to never do because it would just bleed your budget. But as of January 2019, I worked very closely with two trusted Google reps that I have out in Arizona. And they assured me that the algorithm had gotten to a place where we definitely wanted to test out the maximize conversion strategy. And sure enough, I tested it out and it has done wonders for our e-commerce clients. From there, you want to keep the maximize conversion strategy on your campaign for a good year, 6 months minimum, but really until you get to the point where both you and Google agree on what a target cost per action looks like. You'll see that as a target CPA. It really just means a cost per conversion. So when you go to change your bidding strategy, or just to look to change your bidding strategy from maximize conversions to target CPA, you'll do that every 6 months to a year. You want to look at that. When you see Google in agreement with you as far as what that number looks like, because when you click target CPA, they'll tell you what they think they can do for you. You can manually change that, but I don't suggest that you do that because it doesn't guarantee that you'll get a lower target CPA. So you really want to wait and keep it on maximize conversions until you and Google are in agreement for a really good cost per conversion number. And then and only then do you want to switch your campaign over to target CPA. And then you can just leave that really nice and solid unless you see some kind of anomaly going on with your campaign in the future. But for this conversation, that is the absolute best strategy that you can have for the initial year for your search campaign, for your e-commerce campaign.
So now that we have a general idea that we want to make sure that we're maximizing conversions to start off, making sure that stays there for a minimum 6 months to a year, and know that we can revitalize the strategy to target CPA. After that, we want to take you through a live Google Ads account to show you exactly how to do this.
Yeah, so we're jumping into just a blanket dashboard just to kind of show you what that looks like and where to go. I think this is really important. So you're in the Google Ads dashboard, but now what? So if you haven't done this before, this is exactly how you do it. You can either click on that blue plus sign at the top left or click on the new campaign area in the middle. It doesn't matter. It's going to take you to the same exact place. You're going to click on new campaign, not load campaign settings. That's an obvious one there. And then Google's going to ask you what you want to do. Do you want to sell? Do you want more leads and increase traffic? Do you want brand awareness? Are you promoting an app? Or do you want to create a campaign without any guidance from Google, which I would not suggest unless you're a Google Ads expert. So for this webinar, we're going over a sales campaign. Then they're going to ask you, well, what kind? Do you want this on the search? Do you want display like on blogs and things like that? Are you doing a shopping campaign, video, smart campaign? But again, for this webinar, we're doing a search campaign to increase sales on your website. This is where you put your website in. You don't have to, it's optional, but it just helps Google understand your campaign better. This is where you're going to name your campaign. I would suggest, especially for beginners, to leave sales search as the name and then whatever the product or service or even your company name instead of that number 10 there. This is one of the most important parts. Deselect search network and display network. I cannot pound that in enough, especially in the beginning. You want to deselect these two options because it will bleed your budget. The search network is just going to show your ads on search related websites. What that means is it's not necessarily going to just show on Google. It's going to show on other search network related websites that Google is partnered with. The display network is visual banner ads that is going to show your ads on third-party websites like blogs and things like that. Now, it's not to say that this is a bad thing for all cases. If you have a strategy that you want to try out to definitely do that, that's great. But again, for this webinar, we are creating a search campaign to increase sales for your e-commerce website. And the best beginning way to do that is to deselect both the search network and display network so that all your ads are showing only on the Google search network.
Now, that's really important information when it comes to making sure that you're not using misguided strategies, right? If you don't know what you're doing or you have that auto select going on, you're going to run into issues where you have a budget bleed out and you're not making best use of your sales. So since you shed light on that, why don't you tell us a little bit more about some other misguided strategies to pay attention to? That way we can make sure we're running our best ads possible.
Absolutely. So other areas where you see bleed is when you first create your Google Ads account. So not a campaign, but your actual account. You're just getting started from the very beginning. Google will lead you most likely to what's called a Google Express account. You want to stay away from Google Express. Now the dashboard will look much different than what we just showed you. It'll look prettier, it'll look cleaner, it'll look super simple and friendly, but you will have very, very little control over what you can do with your campaigns. I mean, it was really giving Google a lot of automation and trust with your ad dollars instead of you having complete control over those ad dollars. So make sure you're staying away from your Google Express account. You're creating a Google Ads campaign account. And if your dashboard looks like what we just showed you, then you're good. That is what your campaign should look like. And then what we just talked about, the search network and display network just absolutely bleeds budgets. If you don't know what you're doing or have a really strong strategy with that, you want to make sure to deselect those two networks. Another area that bleeds budgets that didn't always, but now it does, is the top of page bidding strategy. So this is where we go and look at, we chose maximize conversions as opposed to top of page bidding strategy. Because your searcher is a lot more savvy and smart these days. They're not just going to pick the very first ad. They're not just going to pick the very first result. Now they will most likely pick something on the first page above the fold, which is that top section of the website of their search results, but it's not necessarily the very first ad. And that bleeds your budget because when you bid for top of page bidding strategy, you're bidding for the highest cost per click. And that will absolutely bleed your budget with much less clicks, which means much less conversions.
Perfect. So as you can see, there's quite a level of attention to detail that needs to be paid in setting up these ads. Another way to make sure that you're legitimizing these ads as best as possible for this savvy audience that you're going to be running ads to, you want to make sure that you make best use of Google extensions. Now, this is something, as Sally just mentioned before, is going to give you the option of manual versus automated because every business is going to be different and because it's not going to be able to dress up your ad as best as you need to. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a Google Ads account here and we're going to show you what the Google extensions are and then some of the best ones that we think everybody should be using and kind of what situation would make the most sense here. So Sally, you want to walk us through here?
Perfect. So you've created your campaign, you've created some ads, but you want to also utilize extensions within Google because this is going to create more ad space when your ads show up on the network. And you'll find that you can click on all campaigns at the top. You choose which campaign you want to look at. Scroll down underneath ads and extensions and click on extensions. really simply, you'll just click that blue plus sign again, and this is where you will select which extension you want to use. You can hover over each one and you'll get a very brief description as to what each one looks like. You'll want to utilize as many as you can, especially for testing purposes, but all of them don't necessarily apply to you. For example, if you don't have an app, there's no need that you would need an app extension. So you'll just want to use the ones that apply to you. But again, try to test out as many as you can, because this just gives Google more and more information to know what you're trying to do here with your campaign. So for this example, we're adding a price extension, and we're adding that to the campaign, not the entire account, not just one ad group, but this entire campaign, because it's going to apply to everything we're selling here. Underneath the type, you can select brands, events, locations. So that's more for services, but for us, this is going to be our brands. And over here is showing you an example of what your ad looks like on both mobile and desktop, if you want to click through those, and where your price extensions will show up on those ads as well. So you want to put your product name within 25 characters. It's super short, so just be really savvy with your strategy there. Your price point and your product description. Keep that below 25 characters, because on mobile it will cut out. And then the URL to that product. You can rearrange, you can have multiple price extensions, and you can rearrange those. So if you want to put your most affordable next to your most popular, or even the most expensive next to your least expensive, but really kind of switch those around so that you can A/B test what's working best for you. But the more transparent you are with things like price extensions, the less likely you're going to have clicks from an audience that you're not looking for. So if you're selling a very high price point item and you're not being clear about your prices on the ads, and you're waiting for people to click through, you're spending money on people clicking on your ads that are not necessarily going to buy. So this is absolutely where you want to show off your prices, as well as take up more ad space on the network, because most likely your competitors are not utilizing all these extensions. So it's very important that you do. The bigger your ad looks, the more legitimate and secure and safe that your ad looks to the searcher. Yours will be much more trustworthy to them.
And so to give you more of an idea of exactly what these different price these extensions look like for the ad campaign, we run through some of our kind of favorite ones, some of the top performers. So Sally, why don't you kind of walk through, why these are important and what they can do?
Sure. So at the top left here, this is your site link extension. You can already see an example of this ad and how that's going to take up more ad space on the search network for you. You want to add things like about us, FAQ, and any other really important information in that section. You can also add a very short description underneath things like about us and FAQ, and Google will decide if and when they will show that. But you don't have 100% control over if they'll show that. But the more information, again, you provide them, the more likely that they will show this when they deem appropriate. So you definitely want to utilize at least 4 of those and put in descriptions, and you will create your ad to be so much more healthy than your competitors, because you're taking up at least twice the ad space of their ads. Next one is the promotion extension. It's a really fun one because it has a little icon next to it that any searcher knows this icon by now. It has something related to price with it. It's a little more eye-catching, and you can put anything there from $1 off to a percentage amount off. You just have to make sure that that promotion applies to everyone. For example, you can't say for new customers only, that will get denied. So you want to make sure that whatever dollar amount off or percentage amount off you have of a particular product, that it applies to everyone going to your site. The next one is the price extensions, which we just showed you. At the bottom left, there's your call extensions, pretty self-explanatory, but it's important to note that this isn't always going to work for everyone. So if you can, then absolutely try this out if you can. But I've had clients that are unable to take the amount of phone calls, or they just simply don't want to do it. So we have not done call extensions for them. We've removed them after having them for a while because they were just inundated and they didn't have the manpower for it. And then on the complete opposite end, we've had people that absolutely love the call extensions. We've had call only ads. because people want more and more and more of these calls, because then they have full control over converting these phone calls into conversions. And you can even take that one step further. If you're utilizing the call extension, you can put a call tracking phone number on there. You can utilize services like callrail.com. There's plenty of them out there. And then you can record those conversations so that you can get 100% clarity on each and every call that's coming from your Google ad to see how many of those are actually legitimate calls and that are being converted. So it just gives you more clarification on your data. Next one is your structured snippets. It's a really simple one just to tell people what kind of brands you're selling, or neighborhoods that you're in, or services that you give. And then the call out extensions at the bottom right there. This is got to be short and sweet and let people know what sets you apart from your competitors. You know, do you have free shipping? Do you have a money back guarantee? Do you have a 10-year warranty? Do you have a lifetime warranty? Those are the things that you want to include in there. You just have to keep it real short because each line can only take up to 25 characters. So those are your most important extensions for the most people as far as e-commerce clients go. Those are the most important ones that you'll want to try to utilize as much as possible.
So we've kind of ran over how to choose the proper campaign and the associated bidding strategy for profitizing and running successful ads. We want to make sure that we're dressing them up and legitimizing him with extensions. Now, when they're live, we want to make sure that we understand how to maintain these ads, how to be in the account to make sure that we're not bleeding any budget and we're making the best use out of this money, right? And so when it comes to best practices for maintenance, something that you want to pay attention to, especially on a daily basis, is search term maintenance. Here is where you can go in and add positive or negative keywords. So an example here is if you're a company and you're selling formal shoes and you see in your search query that running shoes keep triggering your ad, you should add that running shoes as your negative keyword. So what we're going to do is go back into another Google Ads account to really show you how to go throughout this process. And again, make sure that you're doing this on a daily basis as best practice to really make sure you're honing in on the audience and the market that you need for success.
This is a great daily practice to use once you have your campaign, your ads up and running. You'll want to look at your daily search terms. These are the terms that people are typing into Google before clicking on your ad. So here we have a real life example. It's underneath the keywords area in the legend, and it's called search terms, not to be confused with search keywords. So we're looking at the search terms and we're picking yesterday's date. So we want to see all the search terms that people typed into Google yesterday before they clicked on or even viewed our ad. We want to see if these are relevant to what we're trying to do. This particular one, Spanish interpreter from home, that's telling me that someone's looking for a job, and that's not what we're trying to do for this client. So I'm going to select that keyword and add it as a negative keyword. I'm going to add it to the entire campaign, not just the ad group or a previously created negative keyword list. And that automatically puts that in as an exact match, which we can discuss on another webinar, what those different keyword matches are. So you can do that same exact thing with adding keywords, which means you may have some search terms that are not keywords you're actually bidding on, but they're converting well. So you do want to add them as your search keywords that you want to bid on. Otherwise, you just want to leave it alone. You know, you're happy with your search keywords that you're bidding on. It's not a negative keyword, but it's not necessarily something you want to bid on at the moment. It's no harm. So you'll just leave those alone and those will be marked as none. And that, again, that's something you want to do every single day if you can, because as the days and weeks and months go on, all you're doing is giving Google more and more information on what you're trying to do in your campaign. And the more they know, then the more your ads will show only to the targeted audience that you're looking for. And then you'll have to do less and less maintenance as far as the search term maintenance goes. You should still hop in there every day, but you know, the first week you could be selecting 20, 30 negative keywords, but then by the next month or two, maybe you're only selecting one or two because Google's getting more and more knowledgeable of what exactly your campaign is trying to do. So this is just a really easy, fun way to get in your campaign every single day and to do something healthy for it, because you never, ever, ever want to just set it and forget it as far as your ad dollars go.
So we've kind of walked through exactly, how to go through the process in the beginning, right? As we mentioned before, this is going to be kind of the first three big head topics that we want to focus on in terms of these Google ads. There's so much information that we don't want to overload a day's worth within one webinar section, but the proof is in the salt, right? You guys want to know, hey, we're telling you this information, best practices for extensions, for what campaign to use, but you need to know that there's a success story, right? So what we want to do is we want to kind of walk you through a profitable example of a client that came to us that was actually in the hole, doing very bad, very negative in the Google ad space. We were able to take over their account. And as you can see here, the cost to conversion value is just through the roof based on Sally's expertise. This is a 90-day review. So Sally, why don't you kind of walk us through how you were able to use, kind of our best practices and some skills to make sure that you can turn someone around in such a profound way.
Yeah, so I love when this happens because we hear it all the time. When a new client comes on, they've either worked with another agency before and they just haven't seen results, or they've tried to do it themselves and they haven't seen results. And we hear Google ads just don't work for me. 99% of the time I can make them work for you. It's very rare that I can't, because I absolutely love what I do. And I know that we don't just set and forget things. So in this example, we took a client that was completely upside down, spending more than they were making, and even the money they were making were on branded search terms, which means people searching for their company anyway. So people that were going to their company anyway. These weren't new customers. So in the first few months there, we were only spending about $1,000 a month, which is the minimum that I suggest for most cases when you're looking to budget your Google ad campaigns. So we were only spending about $1,000 a month, but we were able to take them from upside down to really breaking even, and then utilizing the strategies that I told you guys about. We were then able to make them hand over foot, just more and more money. We were able to spend more money, obviously, in order to make more. That top campaign there is a search campaign that spent 73 grand in 90 days and returned over $300,000 for them, and keeping under the cost per conversion goal of $50. That campaign is one that I had on Maximize Conversions for about a year. I switched it over to Target CPA when Google and I were in agreement of what that target cost per conversion looked like. Those words are very interchangeable there. And so that's been on Target CPA ever since. The other campaigns are a smaller search campaign, a single keyword campaign that I've spent about almost $10,000 on in the last 3 months, and then converted a little over 65,000. Really nice low cost per conversion, and that's on a single keyword ad campaign, which is just another topic we'll go over another day. And then finally a shopping campaign, which is a beautiful low cost per conversion. Spent just $1,400 on it in 90 days, which is so nominal, and then converted over 22,500. So these are really beautiful numbers. They didn't happen overnight, but the more that you do these things that we're showing you, you start your campaign build off correctly, you utilize all those extensions, you build healthy ads, and you do search term maintenance. Those are just a few of the things that you can do to ensure that you have a healthy campaign that converts and that will continue to grow in conversions as the months go on.
So to kind of reiterate what we covered today in terms of making sure that you're setting up your campaigns to be as healthy as possible, is you're going to want to make sure when you're going through your bidding strategies, you want to make sure at least one of your campaigns is in Maximize Conversions, right? We mentioned here that this is going to be at minimum a 6 months to a year in which you want to make sure it's sitting there, gaining as much success as possible till you find that right agreement for the CPA that you agree with Google, and eventually change to that. Also, searchers are savvier than ever now. You're going to want to make sure that you stand out to this audience and they are gravitated towards your ad. It's not going to be something that's at the top. It's going to be something that offers them the most information, the most exact information, like with Google extensions. So if you're selling a very expensive product, for example, and you don't want anybody below a certain price mark, being able to have that price extension on there is going to really filter out any of those wasted clicks that could be used on your ads. Also, you're going to want to make sure you dive as deep as possible into that search term maintenance. Again, to reiterate, this is going to be a daily practice to make sure that you're really honing in on making sure you're not bleeding out any budget and you're garnering the right type of audience. And so that kind of brings us here to the end of things. As I mentioned, here today, we're only kind of scratching the surface in installation one. Our next series coming at the end of the quarter here is going to be on ad builds. So we're going to get a little bit deeper into this information to be able to help everybody else out. If anybody is interested in learning a little bit more, diving deeper with myself or Sally, or just interested in any of our services, I'm going to leave up our contact information here on this screen. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we do have some time here at the end, about 10 to 15 minutes, to be able to go through a Q&A session. If anybody has any specific questions on any practices or anything that we can help out with, now we're going to keep the floor open for that.
Yes, Luco and I will be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. And so I'll just leave that open for now.
All right. And then kind of while we're getting those questions flowing in, I did have a question for you, Sally. And thank you so much for all the helpful information. When you were going over search term maintenance, you mentioned that there was a difference between search terms and search keywords. Can you kind of go into more information on that?
Absolutely. So it's a great question. Search keyword and search term are on opposite ends of the spectrum, and they're terms you want to get very familiar with. Your search terms, as stated before, are the actual words that people are typing into Google before seeing and or clicking on your ad. Your search keywords are the actual words that you are telling Google that you want to bid on. So if you want to bid on red shoes and all different forms of that keyword, you will put that in as a broad modified keyword and send that to Google and bid on that. And then in search terms, you'll see from your search keyword, you'll see what people typed in before they got to your ad, and that'll tell you if that keyword is doing what you want it to do.
Awesome. And then, so as you mentioned, especially because this is your expertise, we're kind of just scratching the surface on building up that campaign, what it should look like, and some maintenance practices. What else can we expect in learning Google ad builds in our next webinar to come?
Yeah, so building, I know we didn't even touch on building an ad today, and that's because I'm going to be spending an entire webinar on how to build a very healthy ad, and not just one, but multiple, how to A/B test them. So that's going to take up a whole webinar, which is going to be on our next one in the coming month or so, which we're looking forward to. But you can always reach out to us, email, call us. Check out the perspective section on our website at lucaam.com and just click on perspective. We got a lot of free information there as well, especially as far as Google Ads goes and social media management. But we wanted to cover these topics first because there's thousands of things that you can do within the Google Ads dashboard, and it's just far too much to cover in one webinar. So for today, these are the three major things that we covered, and then in the next one, we're going to actually build out those ads. So it looks like we don't have any other questions, but if you guys have, let's see, how soon, well, we do have a question here. How soon can you expect to see results of search terms maintenance? So that's a great question. Let's say you've been getting search terms in, I'll give you a real live example here. I've got a client that sells food online for a specific dietary area, a paleo area, if you will. And we've been getting search terms in that are chicken pot pie related, but that are not paleo related, but they sell a paleo chicken pot pie. So I can't put chicken pot pie as negative because then I'll lose the paleo chicken pot pie searchers. So over the past month or so, I've been making sure to select those search terms. Every day I go in, when I find a search term that's about chicken pot pie that doesn't have anything to do with paleo, I include that as a negative. The first few days I had so many, I had about 40 to 50. After that, it really started, I started to see results after about 3 or 4 days with that particular client. I'm now about a month into it. This morning when I did it, I had 5. So we went from 40 to 5 within 3 to 4 weeks. Now, it's not a guarantee every single time. Every single client is different, but that's a really fair average that after even just a few days, you should start to see a particular search term really minimize unless you make the entire thing negative. You will start to see those come in far and far less. So I'd say the quickest within a few days, but really once you get a good month in, then you're going to start to notice the difference from the day you started to having at least 30 days of data to look at there. And then we have another one. Do these strategies differ if you're a B2B tech business selling software to enterprises, for example, versus a B2C consumer goods or DTC business? So another great question. These strategies are most important for e-commerce. So if you're selling services on your website, it would still apply to you, obviously, or if you have a different way that you're tracking conversions. Otherwise, I would suggest looking at a different type of strategy. You really want to first figure out, what do you want from building your campaign? Do you want email addresses so that you can build lead gen? Because then your strategy is going to be much different and you're not necessarily going to be looking for the maximized conversions area. But again, every industry is different. If I want to say other really healthy ones are maximize clicks or even website traffic, but I would stay away from targeting the top of the page. And looks like those are all the questions we have. Yeah. So I guess we can close it out with this.
All right. Yeah. Thank you again, everybody, for attending. As a reminder, we will be sending a recording. So if anybody would like to send this to their colleagues, network, anybody that could be benefited from this knowledge, please do so. Also, we'll be making sure we follow up with information on our next webinar and building the ads. This is going to be extremely beneficial, kind of move through the funnel. We left this contact information up again. So as mentioned, if you guys have any questions on anything that we could dive deeper with, or just simply looking for some help, please don't hesitate to reach out. But otherwise, everybody have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.